Hello, all. Thank you so much for being here. I am so excited to have each and every one of you present today in today's class. So you can see a little bit about how I teach and what you can kind of expect if you take one of my classes. Today we're going to do a class that kind of focuses on the teaching method that I use in my Rooted Mentorship Program, but I am going to be covering a little bit of Saints material. It's not something that you're going to find in the course itself, but it is on that subject so that you can get kind of an idea of what to expect in either of those classes. So with that, let's get right into it. I wanted to create this class because I see the same thing happening over and over again in regards to working with saints. I have been working with saints probably pretty much my entire life. I mean, I would say yes, my entire life. And I think that a lot of people have some misconceptions about what they are and how you can work with them. I see that there are a lot of people that are interested or maybe even feel called to work with them, but don't quite know how to, don't know how to approach them, don't feel like it's something that they can do, maybe, or even they're not sure that it's something that is sustainable for them in their practice. So I kind of want to give you guys an idea of what that relationship can look like and ways that it can benefit your practice as a whole. So, what usually happens when someone feels called to work with saints but doesn't quite know how to get started or doesn't have a lot of guidance on the subject is that there's either complete hesitation where they decide to just completely forego working with them or, researching the process even, or they wind up kind of jumping in all in the deep end without any kind of guidance. And that can lead to some rather frustrating outcomes, or even with you not quite getting what you thought you were going to get or what you wanted from the situation. So I kind of wanted to give you guys a little bit of an idea of what to expect if you do decide that you want to work with these very powerful allies. Either one of those situations can lead to inconsistency, and that is not something that you want when you are working with saints. A relationship with a saint is most powerful, most beneficial, and most rewarding when there's consistency present. When this is something that you're working on, like a relationship that you would work on with another person, there needs to be that give and take. You are having these conversations with them on a regular basis. You are, making space for them in your daily life. All those types of things need to be happening if you are wanting to pursue this kind of work. Most people are not struggling because of a lack of interest in the subject. I find that most people have a general curiosity about it, if nothing else, but most are actually pretty excited and have already done a little bit of research, or maybe, you've spotted a couple of videos here or there and would really like to know more about what's involved and how this works. So it's not because people don't struggle with this subject matter because they aren't interested or have a lack of, excitement or ambition as far as this practice goes. The problem typically is that they're lacking a structure. They don't have someone that can give them a guide as to this is how we approach, this is why we approach, this is what you can expect kind of thing. And that typically is where the breakdown occurs. So they typically have been given pieces of information. Maybe you've run across a video on a saint that is a saint for a specific intention that you've looked up. Or maybe it's that you've come across a saint that is a saint for a specific profession in life that you've been interested in or that you are already. So you've gotten a little bit of an introduction as to who they are or what they are, small pieces of information. Or maybe you've come across a ritual being done for a saint. Maybe you've seen something done in a mass, or you've come across or heard about something being done for a saint that you've witnessed in your community. But you have no context for it. You're not sure who the saint is, why it's being done, any of that kind of thing. Or you might have been told something like, burn a candle to this saint, to a specific saint, for whatever intention it is, or whatever issue you might be having at the time. And you're given these instructions, but not really any kind of explanation as to why, who the saint is, why you're doing that, any of that kind of thing. So typically when that happens, people try to follow what they've seen. You're working off of the basic principle, like everyone else says, of what happens when you are interested in a type of magic, but have absolutely no way to figure out how to go about it. I will be honest, I was really surprised when I was researching this class and realized that there are very little articles or books or anything out there on this subject. And I think that this is typically because it most of the time is kind of a niche practice. Um, from my end, this is something that I'm involved in, or something that I got involved in because I was raised Catholic. And for most people who practice any type of Latin American magical practice, saints are integrated into our work. It's very much part of what we do. Most of us are exposed or even raised going to Catholic Mass. So this is kind of something that we just kind of all have done since we were children. And that's how we're integrated into it. But you can add this practice like at any point in your life, and you absolutely do not have to be Catholic to do so. So most of, I think that the issues that occur, like I said, are why is this being done? Who is the saint? Why are they the person that we are petitioning for this specific intention? And those are all important things to know. So typically the issue is that you don't understand why you're doing it. You don't understand when to do it. You're not quite sure which saint is appropriate for the intention or the petition that you have. And you're not quite sure if it even applies to your situation. And those are all really important factors in working with saints. It is not something that you can kind of just throw a general method at and expect for it to work. There's work involved. You have to do your research. You need to know at least the basics, if not on most saints, at least for the ones that you're gonna try to work with. I mean, that's pretty pivotal here. So what I want to cover are some common mistakes that I see with people who are trying to work with saints but don't quite have any structure. The first one is that they like to treat all saints as a one size fits all. It's funny because even when you are raised in, the Catholic Church, and you're kind of you grew up learning about saints and petitioning saints for different things that you need, you will have people tell you, light a candle to this saint, or say this prayer to this saint. But they don't necessarily tell you why, or give you any kind of backstory on the saint, what that saint does, why you would be petitioning that saint, or even like whether or not it is appropriate for you to be petitioning that saint for what you are asking for. So it's really important for you to understand that these were once living beings as well. These were once human beings just like you. They have their own interests. They had their own lives. They had specific causes that were important to them. things that they care very much about, things that they stood for. And all of that comes into who and how you're going to petition them to work with them. You need to treat them like you would another person that you're trying to get to help you with something. You wouldn't just approach anyone, and you certainly wouldn't just approach them in any kind of way. You want to make sure that you are doing this in a respectful and appropriate manner. Not, and I should say this, that not every situation should be addressed with a saint. There are certain things that are absolutely not okay to ask a saint for. And part of that comes with knowing the saint that you're working with, understanding precisely why you're asking that particular saint to help you with your intention, understanding their story, where they come from, what they believed in. All of those things factor in. You kind of want to know who you're working with, make sure that what you're asking is aligned with that particular saint, or if it's even an intention that any saint would cover. The other mistake, or a second most common mistake I find, is people that are jumping straight into petitioning. So, like I said earlier, you're going to walk into sometimes a botanica or another metaphysical store and have someone suggest that you buy a candle for a specific saint, or maybe they give you something else, an oil, something that is related to a specific saint, and they're going to tell you, okay, go home, light this candle for this saint, and this will take care of what you need. But they give you no explanation as to why. They give you no explanation as to who the saint is, or what you should be doing prior to that. As I mentioned earlier, these were people. These you wouldn't find it particularly appealing to work with somebody if they approached you in that way, someone off the street that you don't know whatsoever, and they just pop up and say, hey, can you help bring abundance into my life? Hey, my family member said, can you heal them? You know absolutely nothing about this person. You don't know anything about their family. You don't even know why they're coming to you for these intentions. All of that matters when you're working with saints. This is a big deal. Knowing who you're approaching, knowing what the relationship looks like with that saint. And that is another thing. Each saint has a different level of what you can expect in terms of the relationship with them. Some may be completely fine with you praying to them or offering an offering every month, every couple of weeks, but others may require that you keep an ongoing everyday relationship with them. They may want you lighting candles to them every day. They may want to know what's going on in your life all the time. It's different for each one. And a lot of that depends upon the type of saint and what exactly you are working with them for. I will say that it's good to have relationships with saints that are even just for your own personal use, for protection. I have saints that I go to all the time just as a protection. Saints that I can call in when I'm casting a circle, things like that. And these are saints that I have a very personal relationship with, ones that I talk to on a regular basis, ones that I light candles for and leave offerings for. This is a very personal relationship that you have with these saints. So it's really important to kind of know what you're looking at in terms of what is going to be required of you and what you're willing to give. If you approach a saint that is going to require regular committed work with them, but you're not going to have time to do that, that's not the right saint for you. And you shouldn't begin a relationship with them that you're not going to be able to continue to nurture. So those are all really important. factors when you're considering working with saints. The third mistake that I find is the copying without thinking. And this is kind of what I've been talking about in terms of my Rooted class. I don't like teaching anyone to just follow what they see me do. I don't think that it's a good thing for anyone to be given a set of instructions and expected to follow those instructions, and those are the instructions that are going to work for them in every context. A lot of times there is no explanation given as to why, or it's given in a way that is like, well, I mean, this is witchcraft and that's what, the books say, that's what the general method is. People, I think, lose sight of the fact that this is a practice, and your practice needs to look like what your practice looks like. You have ideas of what you wanted when you got involved with this lifestyle. You have ideas of what you want your practice to look like. You know what you kind of want to work with, what is important to you, what areas you're interested in. You know the basic ethics of your practice, what you're willing to do, what you're not willing to do, all of that. And I really want to enforce the fact that you get to choose the whole way through, and you should never be doing anything without thinking about how it impacts you, how it impacts your practice, how it impacts the ethics and morals that you stand for in your practice, and without making it your own. I think that we all become more powerful when we step into the role that we want to be in our practice. I find a lot of times too that we have this tendency to stay in a student type role. Like, even when you're learning and I give you, like, let's say I give you an exercise to do, I want you to step into it like it is yours. Like, you chose to do this working and you are putting everything into it. I want you to think about how it affects you, what you're wanting out of it, all of the things, the ingredients, the preparation, the aftercare, all of it needs to be yours. Like, I'm here to guide you and get you started in your practice, but everything should be a choice in this for you. And you should be thinking about what you're doing, why you're doing it, and how you're doing it the entire time that you are doing any kind of practice, any kind of assignment, or workings in the future. So that's a big one for me. I've seen a lot of people go, social media is notorious for this. They will post a ritual on their social media page and give very little explanation as to what's being done, what's being used, why, etc. Someone sees this and thinks, hey, I'm looking to perform that, whether it's cord cutting, whatever. And so they take the ritual, they might play it and literally copy action for action, word for word, whatnot. That is a big problem. A lot of times you have no idea what that person is putting in terms of their intention, the words that are actually being said in their mind, or before or after the camera stops. You have no idea who they're working with in that ritual, if they have summoned anything, if they are calling upon a specific entity or being in that ritual. These are all things that you really need to think about when you're trying to follow someone else's ritual step by step. A lot of that comes from, like, what is the purpose behind it? People can completely make up rituals for the sake of content. And that is a really huge risk factor for anyone who is learning the practice. Please don't ever think that what you're being shown is what it is completely. The gift of discernment is absolutely necessary when you are learning to practice. So I really want you guys thinking when you're watching someone else do a ritual, whether it's on social media or otherwise, ask those questions. Ask those questions in your own head if you cannot ask the person performing it. What is this being done for? Why are they doing what they're doing? What are those ingredients? Why did they choose them? What else is happening in this that I need to think about? Could there have been, are there symbols that I don't understand or don't know anywhere in the mix of that? All of those things are really, really important. And I really want to get you guys thinking about who and what you follow and what you're trusting as like gospel truth in your journey to becoming a practitioner. The next, I think, really big mistake that I see a lot of people make is the acting out of urgency, not clarity. You will see this happen over and over and over again. And it doesn't just happen with saints, it happens in everything, whether it's choosing to do a working or choosing to contact a deity, or I see this so much. It's like, well, I'm having problems with my money and I need $300 right away to pay my rent. So what do? Well, there are a lot of places where you can walk in, different shops, etc., and buy a candle to a saint for money, for quick money, etc. You don't know anything about the saint. You don't know why they are supposed to be approached for money. You don't know if it's the day that you're supposed to approach that saint for money. You have no idea what the terms are. Nothing. Just, I need money right now, and this person told me that this candle is going to do that for me if I get it and I burn it to this saint. Those are huge mistakes. Just like you, and this goes for every working, for every anything that you do in your practice. Never ever start a working when you are in crisis. Whether that is painful, whether that is a light working, whatever it is, do not start any kind of working when you are in crisis. When there is something going on and you need a solution right away, you need it. You need to understand, you need an answer, you need something that's going to get you out of this mess. You do not do any kind of working during that. This is the time when you are most likely to make a mistake, when you are most likely to overlook something very important. These are all things that can lead to disaster. Either your working is not working out, things backfire on you, and you have an even worse situation that you're looking at, or when you let emotion cloud your judgment, and you then have the repercussions of those emotions that you now have set in motion with a working coming back at you. It's never a good idea. You always want to take the time to really think about what you're doing. Why are you doing this? Why have you decided to address this particular problem with magic versus anything else? And why have you decided to petition this saint for this particular issue? What do you know about them? What is required of you in order to do this petition? Is this going to be a long-term relationship? Are you looking for $300 and then that's it? Or are you trying to foster an ongoing relationship with this saint to bring prosperity into your home? Those are very different things and should be approached in very different ways. All of that is really important for how you're going to go about getting these things done. You really want to know for sure who you're working with, what is required of them, and how you're doing it. You need to know everything. What kind of offerings is this saint like? What day does this saint like? When do I need to ask for this? Is there a separate day that I need to present the offerings to them? All of that comes with this. This is something, any working that you're doing, big, small, etc. There should be a good amount of thought and planning that goes into every working that you do. That is just basic, no matter who you're working with, no matter what you're working with. For the rest of your practice, if nothing else, please take that. There should always be a period of thinking and planning. What are you going to say? What's going to be in your petition? What are you asking for? How are you asking it? All of those things matter. And it is very, very important that you get that down before you do anything else to initiate that working or petition. When something feels intense, and I think that this is kind of the problem that we see regarding that particular rule. When something feels really intense to us as human beings, we tend to reach out for anything that will help. You're in pain and somebody says this tea, that oil, whatever, you're going to reach for whatever people say is going to help. This also comes with a lot of what I've seen. I'm just going to put it that way. The things that I've seen regarding other practitioners or even people that are teaching classes regarding magical practice or spiritual practice, it's often talked about as though, well, as long as your intention is good, as long as your intention is right, then you're fine. This is such a misconception. And I really want to reinforce that point, to the max. Yes, your intention matters. Your intention always matters. I mean, in magic, that is what is done. That is what we do, right? Our intention matters. What you're trying to do, that's the point, right? This is what you're trying to do. This is what you're working towards. However, if you are approaching things that you don't know about, it absolutely is not just intention. There are rules, there are guidelines, there are a lot of things, beings, deities, entities that have specific rules that they follow. And they are bound by those rules. And when you encounter certain things and you don't know what you're doing, and you say, well, I mean, my intention was to do XYZ. My intention was to seek this out, that out. I need this answer. I need this thing done. They're not going to care what your intention is because they don't have to. And a lot of things that maybe don't have your highest good in mind will absolutely use your intentions against you. You need to be very clear about what you're doing, why you're doing it. You need to know the rules. You need to know what parameters you're confined by in these situations and spaces, because you never want to be caught saying, well, I thought that, my intention was enough. I thought if I showed up and I said, well, I have good intentions. Well, I mean, I'm trying to heal this person. I'm trying to do this. I'm trying to bring prosperity to my family. That is going to cover everything. It isn't. This is not a game. And I think what I see a lot of the time are people who are not necessarily trained practitioners. They haven't been doing it for long. They didn't have a mentor or a guide to teach them most of these basic rules going in. So they perform a lot of workings or advise people in ways that are careless and reckless. And I have had personally several people come to me as clients who followed someone on TikTok or YouTube or whatever, and they told them things about practice that were completely false. Big things, not even just little things or little things that they left out that they should have included. I'm talking big things like red liquid magic things. Told them that it was okay, told them that it was fine, told them that it was this and not that. Certain things are certain things no matter how you color it, no matter what you name it. It is still a specific practice, and the rules still apply, and the consequences are the same regardless of whether you knew what you were doing or you didn't know what you were doing. So this is why I am saying that thinking your way through everything and having a solid guide is absolutely necessary in this. So that's my spiel on that. Please be careful when you're watching things and thinking that you can just copy someone else's work. You can just copy someone else's ritual and it will do what you think it will do. And that if you have good intentions, that's all you need. It isn't. It isn't. It's really important to have a solid basis of knowledge before you get involved with anything, regardless. So when you are approaching a saint, there are some things that you need to consider. The first thing that you really want to have solidified in your mind is clarity on what is actually being asked. Not like the surface level problem, not, hey, I need $50 here, but the actual core of the problem. We're looking at things like, what is the real situation? What is the real situation that caused you to need that money? Is this something that happens on a regular basis? Are you finding yourself in this situation every single month, every couple of weeks? Is this an ongoing issue? Or is this like something happened? Somebody got sick, the car broke down, we had an unexpected expense, and now I am just trying to recover from that. It's really important to identify what the root of the issue is, because that is going to change and impact your petition quite a bit. If this is something that you are dealing with on a regular basis versus you just had like a one-off month and you are needing some help right then you're going to want to look at saints that you can petition for long-term financial gain. Saints that will help you to bring abundance and prosperity into your family on a regular basis. Maybe you're looking at the fact that your job doesn't pay you enough. So now we need to look at saints that will help us find a job that's going to pay better. Things like that. It does not benefit you to petition a saint for a couple $100 every single month to help you pay your rent if this is what's happening every month. That's just common sense. You don't want to have to keep asking for the same thing. It's like feeling like, you're a little kid and you need allowance and you're like, can you give me another $200 this month? I know that I just asked you for $200, but can I get another $200? Now, that is not to say that the Saints ever get tired of hearing your petitions, or that it is something that's like, oh no, she's asking again for money. That's not how these things are looked at. But you kind of want to go to the root of the problem so that you're not stuck in the same situation every month or every couple of weeks. We want to be effective in what we're asking for. We want to ask for the thing that is going to benefit us the most practical way that we can. Where you also need to look at, like, what outcome is actually wanted. I see so many people come to me and they will say exactly what I just said. I need $200 for rent. Can you do a working for me for $200 for rent? Okay, sure. You definitely can do a working for $200. But is this something you're doing every month? Are you looking at why you're having to do this every month? Is it an issue with you sticking to your budget? Is it an issue with you maybe continuing to take less money from a job that you feel like you could get better pay somewhere else for? Is it that you have someone in your home? Have your living situations changed? That now what was enough before is not enough for you to make it on anymore? What are we looking at? Because rather than working for $200, if we need a new job, if we need a second income, if we need to just kind of get our money flowing again, there's a block there, and we need to get rid of that block. Let's do that. That's a long-term fix. That's a long-term goal. That is something that's going to help you to continue to replenish yourself. These are the things that you need to be asking yourself before ever thinking about petitioning a saint or anything else, and before doing any kind of magical working. Be honest with yourself. If it's an issue that you're having because maybe you like to shop a little too much, I get it, then you want to start looking at, like, okay, I maybe need to really follow my budget this month. I really need to see what kind of changes I can make that will make a difference for me in my own, out of my own power. Those are the things that really matter before you ever approach anything for help on these issues. Okay, so we're going to talk about the appropriateness factor. This is something that I mentioned a little bit earlier, so we're going to go into this a little more to give you kind of a better idea of what I'm talking about with what is appropriate, what is not appropriate. The first question that you want to ask yourself is a saint the right approach to this problem? As we kind of went over earlier, there are certain things you always want to look at who you're working with, at what you're working with. Whether we are talking about angels, human beings that used to be here, deities, saints, you want to look at the nature of that being. What do you know about them? What have you heard about people who work with them? Do people tend to tell you that they are usually pretty agreeable, that it's easy to work with them? What kind of problems do they typically respond to. I guarantee you that not every entity, not every being responds to every kind of problem. That is not how this works. You're going to find that they kind of have their own realms that they deal in. So not all things respond to all things, and you kind of need to be aware of what is their typical realm and what isn't. You do not want to ask for things that a certain entity or being does not cover. That can either get you in trouble in terms of being disrespectful and inappropriate, or it can get you mixed up in maybe some trickery. So you need to be very well versed on who you're asking and whether or not that is something that they typically deal with or not. I will say that of course, I wanted to preface this all with a lot of caution, because saints they are not just anyone or anything, right? They're powerful. They can make all kinds of things happen. But in one way, they are a little bit, I find that there's a lot of people who say, well, before working with deities or anything like that, like I feel a lot better working with saints because number one, they used to be human. They know what it's like to be a human. They feel like there's more of an understanding there, that saints are a lot more responsive to our problems than maybe something else. And it's more like, the way that I describe it is that it feels more like an ancestor presence than it does a deity presence. They feel more accessible to us because of that human factor. And I think, in terms of how you work with them and what you can expect from them, they are safer than a lot of other entities. Now, I am not at all telling you that it is safe just to approach a saint and it's fine. You don't need to know anything. They're saints, so it's fine. No, absolutely not. You need to know what you're doing first with everything and anything, not just with this. But I will say that it is safer a lot of times for people who have not maybe approached a deity yet. It's the feeling of them being more accessible and easier to approach than a lot of other things. So I think that there is that in terms of a positive reason to work with them. So once you determine whether or not a saint is who you should be approaching with it, then you want to look at if so, which one? Which one is the one that I want to approach with this? Taking a really common example, the money thing. I guarantee you there are a gazillion saints that you can petition for money. Now, or for abundance and prosperity. Now, everybody is going to have their favorite. Everybody is going to have their saint that they just feel like this is the one that I feel like is the best one, and the reason why is XYZ. That comes with working with a few. And because they approach things in different ways, they answer things in different ways. And so everyone is going to have their deity that they feel like is most effective or most agreeable or works in the way that corresponds with how they work. So that's kind of what you're looking at. There is an actual encyclopedia of saints that you can get for research purposes, but of course now, like, there are a million websites. that you can go to research saints, and you can actually research them by the specific intention. So you're looking for a saint for, maybe you're having eye surgery and you're looking for a saint for healing of the eyes. You're having eye surgery and this is what you need. You can actually search that and it will give you the saints that are known for that specific purpose. So there are a lot of ways that you can actually find out a list of saints, and it usually is always more than one that you can petition for the same intention. And you can look at, okay, well, this saint comes from this place and this is what their life was like and they resonate with me and I feel like we connect more on this. And that's how you can kind of determine who you want to petition for. So that's a really it's much easier now to look for saints on who you want to work with, because I mean you have like all of that knowledge, where before you really did need like a full encyclopedia of all the saints, and that was not an easy research. So there's that. Now, in choosing the saint that you want to work with, there are going to be some things that you're going to have to understand. One is their patronage. Every saint has their patronage. This is like the thing that they're in charge of, the thing that they are known for being, the thing that they are known for working with. So whether that is, again, like you're having eye surgery, whether that is like healing of the eyes, whether that is healing from surgery, those are two different things, but you need to know like those specific details of your saint. They typically have multiple patronages for each saint. So no saint is really ever going to just have one thing that they do. Most have multiple things that they do. So that's really important. You need to know, what does that saint do and why? Why is that saint in charge of that thing? Kind of know the history, the story, the detail behind that. Then you're going to want to know temperaments. What was that saint like? If you have someone that was kind of harsh on certain people or certain things, and maybe you're afraid like you fall into that category, or maybe that saint was a little strict. I mean, we've all come across those, like a priest or like a pastor who is like super strict, and you better come correct with them when you approach them. You better have all your ducks in a row. You need to know that about that saint. Is this saint kind of laid back, low key? Can you kind of approach them like you would another person? Just, hey, I'm in trouble. This is the thing that I have going on. Can you help me with XYZ? Or do you need to have like a full formal written petition kind of thing down for them? You need to know what their temperament is. What are you looking at? What kind of person? What do they respond to? You need to know those things. Then you need to know areas of influence. What kind of things does that saint influence? All of that matters. And there is like an actual list, an actual like grouping of things that you can find out what that particular saint works with. Are you looking to protect someone in the military that might be going overseas for combat? You want to look for a saint that was a soldier that specializes in combat protection, not just protection overall, protection in combat. You want someone that's going to stick by their side and make sure that they come home in one piece. These things you need to know. What do they influence? What realms do they influence? And how do they do so? All of that matters in terms of your petition and in the success of ultimately your main goal that you're petitioning for. This isn't just about reputation. I find that that is like one of the biggest sticking points for a lot of people, is that they hear a specific saint's name. And so they think that, well, that saint, that saint is really popular. That saint is everywhere. I see candles. I see different merchandise for that saint all over the place. So that must mean that that saint is the best saint for that particular intention. That isn't true. That isn't true at all. And it isn't that that saint might be the best one for you either. This is all about everything that I have been talking about in terms of the teaching and the thinking is about what is best for you in your practice. What is it that is going to work the best for how you work, for what you do? That is what matters. It's not a one-size-fits-all thing in spiritual practice. You have to find the things that work best for you. So just because maybe, you heard that St. Jude is the saint of impossible causes. Okay, and I see St. Jude everywhere. So great. Let's go with St. Jude. But there's also St. Francis Cabrini, Xavier Cabrini, who does impossible causes. What do you know about her? What are you looking for an impossible cause saint for? Are you aware that there's more than one? And that maybe just because you keep seeing candles everywhere or merchandise in every store for St. Jude does not mean that that is the saint that you should be petitioning for that specific cause. Find out what the saints are about. Who's a better fit for your specific intention? What is the impossible cause that you're trying to get answered? All of those things really do matter. So I really want you guys to think about things like that. Don't just go off of a saint because you've heard their name before, because you see them depicted a bunch of places. So that must mean that they're great. Every saint is great. And every saint has what they do, certain things that they do that are very, specialized. But it's about finding the one that really aligns with you, that works with you. So please don't just go with the first saint that you find on a specific intention. Look at the others. You really might find one that works better with you. So the next thing that you need to know is, what is your intention? Why this approach? Why have you decided that this needs to be approached in this way? That's when are you approaching this because you feel desperate? Are you feeling stuck? And so there are a lot of people who decide that they want to work with a saint because they kind of feel like they've tried everything else and it's a desperate cause kind of thing. And so they're like, well, I've tried everything else, so let's try a saint. Is that why you have decided to approach this way? Is it avoidance? Would you rather approach a saint for those extra $200 you need for rent than to look at maybe what you spent last month? That happens a lot. Human beings, we have a hard time sometimes accepting that we're at fault for the things in our lives sometimes. And so a lot of times we will say, well, it's going to be a lot easier for me to write a petition to pray to this saint to get this $200 than it is going to be for me to admit that I spent that money on something that I absolutely did not need instead of keeping it for my bills. Or have you decided that you want to petition the saint in a grounded way? Is this a grounded approach? How did the idea come to you? What were you thinking about? What did you hear? What did you see that made you think, okay, I think that a saint might be the actual answer here. I think that this might actually be where I'm supposed to be. Is this part of who you were maybe before your magical practice? Do you feel comfortable in a church setting, in a more organized religion type setting? And I need to say this, like, that is okay. I want to make it clear to everyone here that you can absolutely believe in God, pray to God, work with God, all of the above, and be in spiritual practice. You absolutely can. There is no rule against any of that. So maybe you grew up in church. Maybe you were Catholic, maybe not. But that is familiar to you and you feel comfortable there. You pray still the way that you always prayed your whole life. Or maybe that is something that you learn to do later on, but it feels good. It feels like home. It feels comfortable to you. That's great. I really do want to open up you guys thinking into understanding that there is no one way to do this. There are many ways to do this. There are all the ways to do this because each of us is different and we all have things that resonate with us for different reasons. You can feel more comfortable here either because that's what your background was, that's who you were raised to be, or it can be because that's just what feels right with you. That just resonates for you. And that's okay. You are a spiritual practitioner, you're a magical practitioner. You don't have to work with any one set of things. You can pick and choose and you can mix them. That's okay too. So I really want you guys to think about this. But the whole point of getting involved with something else is really part of that process is really understanding why. Why did I get involved? Why do I want to get involved with that? Why am I even looking at this problem as something that I need to fix in this way versus maybe I just need to sit down with my checkbook and budget things? Why do you feel that there needs to be an answer spiritually to that? That's important. You need to be honest with yourself. That's what I mean when I say that it's all about the thinking process. A practice is about shadow work. It's about learning yourself, really getting to know yourself, being honest with yourself, with what you are, with how you are, you're good, you're bad, you're ugly, all of it. And integrating those things, working on those things. If you want to make things that you don't particularly like better, you can do that. That's what this is for. That is what your practice is for. It is something that you're going to have the rest of your life. And so you have to have that relationship there. Something that helps you to grow, something that helps you become more powerful and learn more about yourself. That's what this is. It's not just about doing spells or, making your life easier for certain things. That's not all that this is. This is a journey. It's a healing journey. It's a journey of learning yourself, learning who you are, what you are, why you are the way you are, and how you can change all those things, how you can make things better, how you can heal things that are wounded in you, all of that. So the next thing that I want to touch on is relationship versus transaction. And this is kind of where a lot of confusion happens when you're working with saints or with anything really. Not every action needs to be devotional. And that is really important, especially when you're working with saints specifically, because, we hold them to a much higher standard. And I think, at least in terms of the Catholic Church, They are like our intercessors. They are the ones we go to. What is believed about them is that we go to them, we present our petitions, we present our problems, and they speak on our behalf to God. It's kind of like an emissary type thing, but they carry special favor. And so it is a way for us to help us communicate. There are a lot of people who have a hard time communicating directly with God, and so that's one of the ways that we do it. But we tend to kind of look at them as being holy. I mean, that is what we're told about them. And so a lot of people will look at their interactions with saints and feel like everything that they do in terms of how they contact them, how they communicate with them, needs to be done in a devotional way. And that isn't necessarily true. It's not every interaction needs to be devotional, but not everything should be purely transactional either. This is kind of where we get into the relationship part of working with saints. This is kind of what I was talking about earlier, where you have certain saints that do, like, you need to have some kind of personal relationship with them. There is a certain amount of communication that happens between you and them. There is a sharing. There's a sharing of maybe your life, of what's going on. You can talk to them as you would anyone else that you're going to for advice or that you're discussing your problems with. They want to know. They want to help. This is kind of where you get to really like grab onto that and make the relationship whatever it is that you would like. You can leave offerings, you can light candles. It may be something as simple as just lighting a candle every morning. Hello, I'm here. Good morning. Thank you for everything that you've done for me. Be with me through the day. I have a really rough day today. Work's been difficult. I would really appreciate your presence. Just little things like that. It doesn't need to be approached as a formal prayer or a formal offering or anything like that. It can be small things, just building that communication, building that relationship between the two of you. Those are the things that matter. Because when you have developed a relationship with a saint and they know you very well, and they see everything that's happening in your life, when you go to them with a petition, they already know why. They already know what's going on and why you're in the place that you are. And it makes it easier. It makes it easier for them to help you. It's just like you helping a friend. You already know. You already have that closeness with them. You already have that want to help them because you care about them. That's exactly what we're talking about there. There really is a difference between building a relationship and making a request. And I think that we can all agree that as human beings, nobody likes to feel like we're only called upon when somebody needs something. And I guarantee you, every single one of you have had someone that has done that to you. Maybe is still doing that to you. But you know when that phone rings that, oh man, okay, they might preface it with wanting to, how are you? How are you doing? What's going on in your life? But only long enough to kind of get their foot in the door to then ask you for whatever they need to ask you for. Yeah, it's like that. You don't want to be that guy. You don't want to be that guy with a saint. There's a big difference between having a relationship, building a relationship with someone, and using someone, only contacting someone because you need their help immediately. That's never a good way to build a relationship. So, I think one of the biggest things that I can say as far as advice goes in working with a saint is that you want to kind of just look at it like you would with another person. Because honestly, like that is what it is. They were people once. And if you wouldn't like being treated a certain way, neither would they. And so that's really a good way to look at it. Kind of keeps you from committing any of the major faux pas anyway. And just be consistent. If you're gonna do offerings, be consistent. If you're gonna do prayers, be consistent. If you're just gonna chat, be consistent. Chat regularly if that's what you're gonna do. Just keep what you have going always so that you kind of maintain that connection with them. Okay, so now let's kind of talk about like how we're going to apply these things. So let's walk through it in like a real way. Example, let's say somebody is dealing with instability, whether it's financial, emotional, in a relationship, environmental, etc. We're dealing with instability. And instead of immediately saying, okay, let's choose a saint and let's pick a saint that is popular, because we see that saint everywhere, so that saint's got to be great, right? I mean, we covered that, right? They gotta be good because they're everywhere. So that saint's popular, that means they're good. Okay, no. we've already covered why you don't want to do that. Okay, so instead we are going to pause. We're going to ask what kind of support is actually needed. All right, we're looking at instability. Regardless of what realm of their life that it's in, what is the support that they need most in that area? Then we're going to ask, is it the stability that is required? Would everything be better for them if there was stability? Or maybe protection? Do they need protection from the instability that is happening? What's occurring in that instability? Are they at risk? Are they in danger because of that instability? Or maybe it's opportunity that they need. Do they need an opportunity to change where they are, where they're living, where they're working? Maybe who is around them? What would be the support that would help them the most in that situation? Because you can look at the situation and say, okay, they're financially unstable. Great. So let's petition Martin de Tours, St. Martin de Tours, and we're going to petition him for money, right? We're going to petition him for prosperity and abundance for this person. Okay. I mean, on the surface, that may seem like that's a good option, right? But maybe the financial instability has a little more to it. Maybe they're financially unstable because they have a partner who is withholding money as a means of control. Okay. So do they need protection from that person? Do they need an opportunity, maybe a job or a way for them to get out of that relationship, to move, to have their own place? Those are the things that you need to be looking at versus just, boom, this is a saint that I know is well known for money, so financial instability, that's the answer. You never want to look at a situation one-sided like that. So then we look at, which saints align with that need. Okay, maybe we're looking for protection from financial violence. There are saints specifically for that intention. Or maybe we're looking at a saint who will offer protection and opportunities in their career that will help them to get money together on their own and leave. There are saints who do that as well. So whether it is a moment for petition or something deeper, the goal is not to rush ever. So you really want to look at what is going to be best for them. What is going to help them the most in this situation? Do not rush to come up with a solution. Do not rush to come up with a saint's name that you can give them to petition. Always do your due diligence first. Always look at options. Look at exactly what you think would help the most and discuss it with them. Okay, why are we in this? Like, what would help the most here? And then look at what saints cover that. And then make a list from there and kind of figure out where your best ally, where's the alignment coming from the most in that situation. Whether you're ready to petition or not, like, this should always take time. There should always be a deeper effort with you to find ways to connect the most with the saint that is going to be most beneficial for that situation. Your goal is never ever to rush. The goal is always to choose intentionally, to really think about it, to really try to cover all the bases first. What saint or what method is going to be best for this situation? How can we best provide as many answers as possible, as many things as are needed? You want to include as much as you can. You want to try to address everything as you can. Never ever just look at it from one aspect. Always try to think about everything that is included in that. So I guess the next question for that would be, why does that matter? Why does it matter if you're looking at the big picture, if you're looking at everything that this person might be going through, all the different facets of their issue or their problem? When you approach your practice in that way, you stop second guessing. This is a big issue, especially when you're just starting out practice. I find this to be something that a lot of people do. They make a plan, they make a petition, they decide on a working, but then they do the working and are like, oh, I didn't think about that. Oh, I forgot to include protection for this. I didn't realize that this was, I didn't think about, like, what if this person reacts this way? What if this thing works out this way? They stop. They're always second guessing. They're always second guessing their work. So this is one way to really help you stop second guessing because you've thought it out beforehand. It also helps you to stop jumping from one thing to another thing. The jumping from thing to thing is really difficult, especially in the beginning, because if you know that there is more than one thing necessary for this specific person or specific working, you tend to want to, okay, I need to address this, and you're jumping from subject to subject. You're jumping from one thing to another. When you let it flow from the beginning, you're thinking it out from the very beginning, it unfolds in order in front of you, and you can better plan and you can better address everything without feeling like you're jumping from one thing to another without really resolving any one thing at a time. It also helps you to start building something that actually makes sense. I think like that is one of the best things when you are planning out working or creating a petition and you're writing it out and you're going one thing at a time, right? You're letting it unfold in your brain. You're thinking, okay, we're going to address this because of this. And then, okay, well, then this could happen. So let's address that. When you look at that plan and you realize this makes sense and I've covered the bases, I've looked at everything that could potentially happen, I've protected them from the things that I can foresee, I've looked at maybe things that they hadn't even thought about, and this plan makes sense. It increases your confidence as a practitioner. It helps you to see where your gifts lie in terms of what you're seeing and what you're planning for. That builds you as a practitioner. That gives you a place to start. It gives you insight into your own thought process, into your problem solving skills, into your critical thinking. And all of those things matter when you're practicing. This is also where consistency comes from. When you start mapping out a problem and you're letting it unfold, you start recognizing patterns, things that you typically wind up having to watch for, or things you have to plan for in specific workings. So you start to understand, okay, when I have a financial working, these are the things that I know typically always come up and I have to plan for. And so I'm going to already plan to include these things. I'm going to plan for those things. I'm going to set up protections or specific ways of writing this petition so that those things don't occur. That helps you to build a consistent practice, a practice where you have a method that works for you and this is how you do things. That is your best ally in your practice. That's where consistency is your friend, not just discipline alone. You need discipline in your practice as well as consistency, but those two things need to exist cohesively in your practice. You need discipline and you need understanding. When you understand what to expect in specific kinds of workings or in specific kinds of situations, then you can plan for those things. You understand how the working works. You understand what to expect afterward. You can better foresee things. You can plan for things in a much more effective and practical way. That is what builds you as a practitioner. This is one of the things that builds you as a practitioner. So, that being said, I have covered basically everything that I was going to cover in today's class, and I just kind of wanted to check in and let you guys know, like, this is how I teach. This is what you can expect. It is not just what to do. It is not just a set of instructions that you're meant to follow. It is how to think on your own, how to develop your own practice in the way that you want to develop it, in the way that makes sense for you. Inside Rooted, we build the structure. We go deeper into decision making, discernment, consistency, and building a practice that is actually yours. Not mine, not following anyone else's practice. This isn't based on someone else's practice. This isn't someone's practice that I read about. It is about building your practice in the way that you want it to look, in the way that makes the most sense for you. Inside Saints and Sorcery, we are going to expand this into specific saints. We're going to talk about how to work with each saint, how to approach those relationships in a very real way. And I think, you guys are going to find some really interesting information, some new things that you didn't know, maybe some new approaches even to things that you've already been doing. So I would really love to see each and every one of you in Rooted and in my Saints and Sorcery class. And you got a good idea of what you can expect here. I really hope to see each and every one of you. And thank you so much for joining me for this class. I really enjoyed putting this together for you guys. I hope you enjoyed it and got something out of it. We'll see you next time.